Hello everyone, and welcome to my Titanfall 2 multiplayer overview and discussion. I had a hard time deciding what I wanted to call it, because the discussion implies that there's feedback, but whatever. We'll call it overview and a critique. So I'll be releasing 3 videos about this game, this one on the multiplayer, one on the single player, and one on a spoiler section about the single player, about things that I liked, that I would, in specific detail, and that I would like to see, things that I would like to see in Titanfall 3. So for this specific video, I'm going to break this down into 3 main points: the pilots, the Titans, and of course the gameplay itself, breaking down each aspect with some visual aids and going from there. Leading with the pilots, this is who you'll be spending 30 to 90% of the time playing as, depending on how good you are at the game and how quickly you're able to call in your Titan. For multiplayer reasons, pilots are just the soldier player's control, but within the game, pilots are known almost like super soldiers with their lightning reflexes, parkour abilities, and Titan control, which really nicely meshes together with the fact that you are clearly much more powerful than the grunts and specters that are within the game as well. So there are 10 custom classes available to the player, with 6 through 10 unlocking as you level up, or through a way that we will talk about later. But if you look closely, there are enough hints on screen that you can probably piece together what I'm talking about if you don't already know. So each pilot class has the usual chunk of options: weapons, class types, armaments, and so forth. There are 7 different types of pilots, each with its own unique look and style. These classes are the grappling hook, which allows you to swing from and pull yourself to a wall, and is also the particular ability that I think should be on every class, and then have the other classes being the ones you switch between. The mobility provided by the grapple hook is far too useful compared to the other abilities, just in my opinion, but it seems to be that mobility is king in this game, and the grappling hook gives you a lot of mobility options. The other 5 options being that you can turn invisible, have a sonar knife that reveals players in a pretty large area, a speed boost which increases your health regen and of course your speed for a short time, pretty useful with submachine guns, shotguns in particular, a particle wall that places a stationary wall to increase outgoing bullet damage and of course absorb incoming damage, a clone who will imitate your moves to throw off your enemies, and finishing with the character who probably has the second most useful ability in my opinion, the phase shift. Effectively blinking through space for a short distance and then reappearing back within the physical world, I guess would be the best way to put it. Each class also has access to all of the same weapons, perks, grenades, and so forth. Moving forward, we have 6 different grenade types to choose from. The basic frag, I will not be explaining that one to anyone. The arc grenade, functioning much like a stun grenade, slowing movement and blurring vision. The fire star, capable of killing an opponent with a direct hit. The gravity star, that pulls in enemies as well as curving bullets before exploding and dealing damage. The electric satchel, which I believe is very similar to the arc grenade except it's manually triggered. And of course, the last satchel charge, also known as C4, no explanation is going to be given there as well. There are 5 primary weapon types within the game, all with their unique set of weapons. And to start us off, we have the assault rifles, the R201, also known as the M4, Hemlock and M16 style, the G2 semi-automatic rifle, and the Flatline, the heavy-hitting assault rifle. The R201 is going to be your basic assault rifle, decent all around, but nothing really special to note. The Hemlock is a little bit overpowered, but compensates by punishing a player for missing, as there's significant time between shots compared to many of the other weapons. The G2 is a very hard-hitting but semi-automatic rifle, and the Flatline is the most unique of the bunch, as it hits much harder than the R201, but has the unique attribute of having pretty extreme horizontal recoil instead of your typical vertical recoil, found on most real or video game guns. Next up, we have the submachine guns, where we have 4 options. The Car, a basic MP5 style submachine gun. The Alternator, which is a fairly useful twin-barreled SMG. The R97 Compact, and the Volt energy rifle. The Alternator has a wider spread, and the Volt has slower, harder-hitting rounds, while the R97 has a very high rate of fire, giving you 4 very distinct submachine gun options, along with 4 very distinct assault rifle options. After those, we have the heavy weapons, and to start us off, we have the Spitfire, again, a basic LMG. The L-Star, which is a energy heavy with no magazine but an overheating meter. And finishing up with the Devotion, a heavy machine gun that has a slow rate of fire that gradually picks up to an incredibly high rate of fire the longer you hold down the trigger. Our shotgun options are pretty limited, but understandably so, as there's only so much you can do with a shotgun, and both of the guns here are fairly unique. The Ava 8 is an automatic 1 or 2 shot kill with a limited magazine size, which is about as simple as this game can get when you're talking about shotguns. The Mastiff, on the other hand, is the only other type of shotgun that you can really get your hands on, which is a pump action. However, to compensate for the drawback of being a pump action, the Mastiff is an energy-based slug-style weapon that travels quite a ways and deals very significant damage, even at mid-range. At close range, this sucker's a 1-shot kill more so than the Ava, and even a 2-shot kill at a range that the Ava would never even be able to hit. Although leading your target with these slow-moving slugs can be difficult when the target is perpendicular to you. Almost wrapping us up, we have the sniper rifles, of course. The Kraber, if you've been paying attention, is going to be just your basic sniper rifle. The Twin Fire is exactly what it sounds like, a sniper rifle that fires 2 rounds at a time. Fun, but a little weird to handle. I haven't gotten very far with any of the snipers. And to finish us off, we have the Longbow DMR as a semi-automatic sniper rifle. Now last, and I don't want to say least, but I have rarely seen these in action, we have the anti-pilot grenade launchers. Some of these do work against Titans, but anti-Titan weapons will almost always be your better option, especially given that these are considered primary weapons. First off, we have the Sidewinder, followed by the R6 Softball, the EPG-1, and lastly, the EM4 Cold War. The Sidewinder fires rapid micro-missiles at its target, the Softball launches sticky grenades, the EPG-1 is a single-fire, direct energy-propelled launcher, and the Cold War is a full round burst grenade launcher. All pretty unique, but rarely used as far as I have seen so far. Every pilot, of course, needs a backup weapon, and Titanfall 2 forces you to make a difficult decision of having your backup weapon be a pistol for when you run out of ammo in a firefight, or having an anti-Titan weapon to, well, deal with Titans, obviously. So there are 6 different pistols to choose from, perhaps 5. The automatic pistol, the semi-automatic pistol, the sniper revolver, the shotgun Desert Eagle, and a regular revolver. All of them are fun. All have a way of being optimally used in a unique way. The auto basically is just a spray and pray. The semi-auto pistol is incredibly accurate, and the Deagle, being a shotgun pistol, is great at close range, and so forth. You also have the choice of 4 anti-Titan weapons: the Charge Rifle, the Mag Launcher, the Thunderbolt, and the Archer. The Charge Rifle has no reload, just a short charge time and an even shorter cooldown time. The Mag Launcher can seek out Titans that are near and deals reliable damage, kind of like a sticky launcher. The Thunderbolt deals a lot of damage and blurs Titan vision, but it is also a very slow-moving projectile. And lastly, the Archer is a lock-on, single-fire rocket launcher that deals significant damage. Every weapon has a set of perks, sights, and camo patterns that are unlocked by challenges and leveling up the weapon by playing with it. The perks consist of faster reload, increased magazine size, faster aim down sights, shooting while sprinting, faster tactical ability cooldown, read grappling hook or your particle wall, and faster weapon swap speed. Weapon sights generally consist of the iron sights when you start, of course, a new weapon, which are all unique iron sights to the given weapon, some of which might even be better than the other sights available, which are a red dot style, ACOG, and target marker. The only thing that makes these unique is that they're not your typical red dot sights, but they function the same way. One has a one-time zoom, the other has a multiple time zoom, and the target marker essentially highlights enemies while viewing them down the sights, but you do lose a custom a perk slot for your weapon when using the target marker. There are also a few pilot perks available, such as being able to hang on walls or faster regen health, but they are minor changes, and so far I have not really felt the impact of any particular pilot perk over the other. There's also a few customizable takedown options for when you execute an enemy. One of my favorites consists of the Grand Theft Semi-Auto, where instead of just meleeing an opponent, when you come up behind them to assassinate them, you kill them with their own pistol. A little violent, of course, but it's a very fun way to humiliate your opponent for not watching their back. And that about wraps it up for everything that makes up a pilot. My main critiques of just this aspect so far are about the grapple hook and how I think that should be on every pilot, and that in certain situations, weapon perks have very little use, such as the increased ammo on the charge rifle, which makes no sense as there's no ammo count, or the mag launcher, which looks like it should work, except when you read the item description, it says 6-round launcher. So adding the larger magazine size doesn't actually change the fact that you still have 6 rounds. You're much more beneficial to have something like faster reload times. I would also like to see a little more weapon variety, but I can appreciate that each weapon only has, or each weapon class only has one weapon that feels standard, and then the rest of the weapons feel very unique, unlike many other shooters that have way too many guns that all feel exactly the same. So I can't really hold that against Respawn too much for doing a very good job with the limited items that we do have to choose between. Outside of those two very minor points, I believe, the pilot created class system is a well-built, if not kind of simple system. But simple in the way I like. It's simple in the way that reminds me of the original Call of Duty Modern Warfare or Modern Warfare 2. You unlock stuff by leveling up, and you level up by playing. You level up the things that you unlock by playing with them. It's easy, it's fun, it's pretty addicting because you're constantly getting new stuff and you want to try those things out. So overall, I would definitely highly commend Respawn for their pilot creative class system. Now on to the Titans, baby. This is where the game really stands, of course, on its own. This is what the game is predicated around: giant mech combat. And how does it work? Well, we'll talk more about that in the gameplay discussion. For now, we're going to talk about the actual Titans themselves. So the Titans in Titanfall 1 were a big part of its long-term failure, in my personal opinion, as it always felt clunky and very rock, paper, scissors-ish with the limited selection of Titans. So Titanfall 2 fixes this by giving you 6 unique Titans to choose from, almost like a hero system, each with its own unique ability, loadout, and Titan build, as well as an ultimate core ability. Each of these 6 Titans has a name, starting with, not in any particular order, Tone, North Star, Legion, Scorcher, Ronin, and Ion. I won't spoil everything about the Titans, however, there's a lot to be said about knowing what you're doing when you actually get into a Titan, and so that way you don't get crushed. So starting with Tone, we have a tracking grenade launcher that provides a partial lock. After 3 of these partial locks, you'll have a full lock, allowing you to fire your shoulder-mounted rockets. These deal pretty significant damage and do require a full lock before you are able to fire them on your targets, with the bonus mechanic that if you are to lock onto more than one target, which is very possible, you will fire extra rockets because you have 2 targets that you're locked to. He also has a particle wall to block incoming fire that he can shoot through himself, and a sonar dart that provides a partial lock on all targets within the area. His ultimate, Salvo Core, is a very powerful, very unique to control core ability. Essentially, as soon as you activate the ability, a large barrage of rockets are fired in whatever direction you're aiming. The catch being that once you start it, they all fire and then they're gone. So you gotta make sure you time this properly to not waste it. Next up, we have my current favorite, North Star, the sniper of Titans. Traps holding Titans on a short leash, a hover ability, and cluster targets to take out ground targets. The charged plasma rifle that North Star wields is a devastating weapon in the right hands, dealing massive amounts of damage to enemy Titans from a long ways away, and if the enemy gets too close, you can open up with your hover core to rain down controlled rockets from above. Unlike the Tone, you manually control when and where these rockets fire. Legion is what I would consider to be the final form of the Team Fortress 2 Heavy. Wielding a minigun with a gun-mounted shield, this Titan has the ability to knock back nearby enemies or damage long-range enemies, depending on his tactical mode, with the core of being able to automatically lock on with a Gatling gun to anything within range. Overpowered? That's up to the user. Scorcher is going to be what I would consider the artillery unit. He has a thermite grenade launcher, a fire shield, and a carpet bomb-esque ultimate. Scorcher has great utility and is pretty tanky compared to the other Titans, such as Ronin and North Star. And speaking of Ronin, Ronin is the ninja of the Titans, if you could ever consider a giant hulking metal robot to be anything related to ninja. The Ronin has a close-range ricochet shotgun, an electric wave arc blast, a damage-reducing block, and a sword-slashing ultimate. Plus, the ability to also phase shift through stuff. No big deal when you see a Ronin just appear in front of you with a sword out. Lastly, we have Ion, who has an energy-based weapon from both close range and long range, a laser core ultimate that looks flippin' sweet, and an even cooler shield that not only blocks incoming damage, it actually catches the rounds and then will fire back at the opponent. The only negatives to this being that it is not a shield based on the damage absorbed, it's based on time, so you have to use it at the right moment as opposed to just at the right time to block damage. So with all 6 Titans out of the way, let's move on to the perks and abilities of each one. Each Titan has 3 perks, but only one unique one, which I will say is a bit of a negative, although it does help balance each Titan. All Titans have a Titan perk, which gives them a bonus such as the ability to dash an extra time, Stealth Eject for when you don't want to get shot out of the sky, Nuclear Eject for when you want to blow everything to Kingdom Come for ruining your Titan, Enhanced Auto Titan, which allows your Titan to use its abilities when you're not in it, as well as being more accurate, a Partial Core build, which just spawns you with a certain percentage of your core already completed, and a bonus Electric Smoke to deal with those pesky pilots stealing your batteries. The second perk that all the Titans share has to do with the Titanfall itself. You only have 2 options here, both are useful in different ways. The Shielded Fall, which protects your Titan in case you die before you get a chance to get in it. It'll stay prone with this shield over it for quite some time, allowing you to respawn and get back to your Titan before it takes damage. The other option, of course, is a much faster but unshielded Titanfall. This is really good for when you're definitely safe or very confident in your ability to call on your Titan without dying. It'll come in after about 2 seconds and you can immediately jump in and rock. Lastly, each Titan does have one unique perk, of which they provide 6 or so options for. I'm going to leave those out of this to kind of give you something to find on your own, as each one does feel unique and kind of changes your playstyle. However, it does seem like progressively the next one you unlock is a little bit more useful than the previous one. I can't say that for every Titan though. Last and certainly least in terms of importance, but fun nonetheless, each Titan has unlockable camo patterns, nose designs, and weapon camos. I honestly can't think of any real firm critiques for the Titan choice outside of perhaps personal bias. Many games have recently trained me to expect way more options, but I do think the Titans are very well balanced, and coming from with the experience in games like League of Legends, Siege, and Overwatch, where you have so many unique playstyles, the more unique aspects you add to a game, the harder it is to balance those unique aspects. So I think Titanfall 2, while feeling shallow, is unique enough that everything still feels balanced without any one particular setup being better than the other. That said, I have heard through a few YouTube videos that Tone and Legion are considered 2 of the meta picks, but I've done equally impressive on Tone, Northstar, Ion, and Ronin. That's just my perspective, of course. Meta generally comes from stats from pretty much all the players within the game. All things equal, though, it's a great feeling when your Titan comes out of the sky, you jump into its hand, transfers control to pilot, and you're ready to rock and roll and feel like you can take on anybody. So now, let's talk about the true grit of the experience, where the flash and customization has to hold up. How's the gameplay? My personal opinion, it's fantastic. And I really just want to ramble here for the sake of blabbering over all the things I like about this game, but I'm going to try and keep it structured, and we'll start off with the game modes before we jump into the really actual gameplay side of things. I know it's taken a while, and that's going to be the real meat of the game, but we got to explore each aspect before we jump into how the game actually plays, because part of Titanfall 1's problem, there wasn't enough to do, and it didn't last very long. Starting with the game modes, we have Attrition, Pilot versus Pilot, Last Titan Standing, Capture the Flag, Amped Hardpoint, Bounty, and of course Mixtape, which is just a variety of all the other games, a random selection of those. Attrition is a large-scale team deathmatch when you have bot grunts providing cannon fodder and points towards the total score to distract pilots from the threat of other pilots and to make the battlefield more intense and larger. It's a fun game mode, but I tend to dislike how easy it is to be killed by a pilot because there's too many things to keep track of. However, there is a lot to be said about players who can play Attrition and effectively kill opposing pilots. Next up, we have Pilot versus Pilot. Very much as it sounds, a player versus player experience with no Titans or bots involved. After that, we have Last Titan Standing, a very similar experience to a PvP, except to compensate for the Titan combat. Instead of respawning, the game is played in rounds where the team with the most Titans still alive at the end of the round win, with a best of 5 and a halftime where you switch sides. If a round ends and both teams have equal Titans, it is the team with the least amount of damage taken that will win that round. After that, we have Capture the Flag, exactly what it sounds like. Titans allowed, but I'm pretty sure there are no bots in the game. I haven't played this very much because I never choose to play it outside of when Mixtape throws me into the game, but I don't believe I've seen bots, just Titans and pilots. Amped Hardpoint is basically domination with a twist that you can amp points or essentially capture them again to provide a point bonus. Again, Titans allowed, no bots. Finally, it brings us to Bounty, my personal growing favorite as it works with all kinds of players and it's its own unique mode not commonly seen in many shooters as far as I know. So Bounty has pilots versus pilots with Titans allowed working against each other to kill off the bot-controlled third team, consisting of the entirely non-threatening grunts, the slightly more bullet-spongy specters, and the occasionally irritating reapers. Killing these bots or other players gives you cash which can be deposited in the bank at the end of a round for a point bonus. Rounds end when the NPCs have been eliminated and banks are open for a short time afterwards, with the next round starting after the banks close. Each game follows the same pattern of rounds, I'm pretty sure. Grunts, then a single Titan, and then Grunts and Specters, followed by 2 Titans, Grunts, Specters, and Reapers, followed by, again, 2 more Titans. This could be slightly inaccurate, as I stated, but you get the idea. There is a consistent pattern of waves every game mode. The catch to this mode, and why it works for all player types once they know how the game works, is that you can contribute just as much, if not more, to your team's victory by killing the NPCs for cash over killing the enemies. Secondly, dying causes your cash amount to be cut in half, which creates very tense situations, but doubly so if you're behind enemy lines alone or attempting to get at one of the banks that might not be controlled by your team. Someone could be camping it waiting for you, or on the flip side, you could be the first person to a bank and then camp it waiting for opponents to come in, ignore you, kill them, cut their cash down by a large amount, by half, and even gaining some more for yourself, which you can immediately then walk up, deposit into the bank for that extra bonus. You can also be a Titan and camp a window right outside of the bank. That's pretty irritating, but hey, all strategies work. Now, the moment, of course, everyone's been waiting for. Now you know how the game works. Let's talk about how the game is played. I don't want to start and just come out and say the gameplay, I think, is incredibly strong. There's a lot of things to talk about, and I've been known to ramble a lot. I just talked about that a moment ago, when we were talking about the game modes and the gameplay itself. But I tried to keep it as straightforward as I could, while also not leaving out what I thought were important details. The last thing I want to mention before we jump in is that there are 6 factions that you can play as. None of them have any distinct advantage, and I won't be going into any of them as they have story purposes. But I will say the only thing that happens when you drop into a game, you get to see the person that give you a little pep talk, and the commentator within the game is the voice of the leader of your faction. So that's kind of cool. A bunch of different groups. It feels like you're playing for a team. So finally we get into the start of a game. You get your little pep talk at the start, you drop in and can't do anything until you've actually touched the ground for the first time, and the game begins. You'll probably spend some time in the options menu tweaking your controls to your liking if you didn't already do that in single player, but it's smooth sailing after that. I was impressed personally by the fact that most of the games that I've played recently on my 970 graphics card have required a little bit of tweaking to get them to run properly. Titanfall 2 was immediately running at 60 frames per second the moment I started multiplayer or the single player without tweaking any settings. So I don't know every nook and cranny of each map yet, but so far they all feel like they've been designed with the gameplay mechanics in mind. Running from wall to wall, leaping through an open space to then launch your grappling hook to a far building, swing through it, and then land on the next building is very easy and intuitive, but there's enough depth between canceling your jumps, knowing when and where to launch your abilities and what you want to be doing, that you can definitely tell an experienced player from a beginner by who's gliding around the map and who's constantly hitting walls and having to climb over them. Speed is the name of the game in my opinion here, and this is also again why I think the grappling hook should be a staple item for every class. No matter what I'm going up against, outside of simply aiming reflexes, my ability to maneuver around the map seems to be my single biggest advantage. The shooting always feels fresh since you never know which position in or on a building your enemy could be currently occupying. At any point in space, there could be an opponent, essentially, compared to most traditional shooters where your players are at ground level because that's what they are. They're standing on the ground. Players can approach their targets from nearly all directions, giving those who are constantly moving a slight to big edge over anyone attempting to camp. Time to kill feels very balanced, and only rarely does it feel like I died to an opponent who only has slivers of health left, even though I might have gotten the drop on them. But I've never really felt dominated by any particular weapon or even style of play. Perhaps outside of maybe the same way I play, which is just fast aggression. I'm just losing the firefights because they have better reflexes than I do. If anything, I generally felt like I was the one dominating players by constantly moving. This is pointed out by your faction leader, who will say things along the lines of, "Wow, I shouldn't mess with you," or that you are in fact actually dominating an enemy pilot. All abilities are cooldown based, including wall running, your tactical ability, and grenades. Wall running, of course, refreshing the fastest, but you can't run on any single wall for an infinite amount of time, and at some point you'll lose momentum and fall if you don't move on to the next building or continue with your momentum. You are also able to cancel both your grapple and wall run by using the crouch button, which will immediately disconnect your grapple or disengage you from a wall run. Furthermore, you can also jump and double jump while grappling something. For example, instead of grappling a wall and climbing over the top of it once you're pulled to it, I can latch onto a wall, pull myself towards it, then jump over and disconnect my cable at the same time, thereby flying over it and not having to put my weapon away for about 1 second while I jump over and lose speed. I can't overstress how important your maneuverability is. The number of times that I have deposited a bounty in Bounty Hunt and then just sat by a window waiting for somebody to climb over it with their weapon put away and unable to shoot back at me. I've got so much money by doing that. If you're maneuvering properly within this game, your weapon is always at the ready and always able to fire. On a side note, it's not incredibly important in a game like this where death happens so quickly and often enough that you generally always have a fresh loadout, but most of the weapons in the game, with a few exceptions, don't actually have an ammo count. You simply have the rounds in your magazine and an infinite number of times that you can reload. As many players learn, being able to shoot while moving is a huge part of an experienced player's arsenal. Knowing that you're much better off just spraying in a general direction instead of attempting to aim at anything while running on a wall can make all the difference. Sliding through a low doorway and just raining unaimed rounds at a wall or window is a great way to make sure you don't miss by trying to be too precise if someone rounds a corner and you're still moving too far. It's very easy to overcompensate for your high movement speed. Another feature I like about this game are that there are only 2 types of kill streaks, so to speak, and neither of them are actually traditional kill streaks. Your Pilot's Special and your Titanfall are both activated by earning enough points to use them, and can be used multiple times throughout the game. It's never a question of if you'll get your Titan or Special, it's only a question of how quickly can you get enough points to give yourself either a small or significant advantage over your opponents. Once the first Titans in the game touch down, the gameplay quickly changes depending on how even the teams are. In a balanced game, both teams get Titans at a roughly even pace, and it makes you play a little more cautiously as a pilot since you want to avoid flying through the open and running into a fresh enemy Ronin. If you don't have an anti-Titan weapon, you might be better off waiting inside or away from the main Titan battlegrounds. That said, any team that is dominating and manages to get several Titans ahead of their opponents generally maintains control throughout a large portion of the game. I have had great comebacks where we've called in our second wave of Titans, crushed them, and then continued to crush them after that point. But generally, outnumbering your opponent with Titans is a great way to win a game. Now, with those words freshly out of my mouth, I'm also going to say that the Titans are not necessarily crazy overpowered. In typical Titan versus Pilot combat, the Titan generally, but not always, will win. However, it's incredibly satisfying and helpful to be blasting away at a Titan who either can't pay attention to you because he's fighting an enemy Titan, or just doesn't know where he's being hit from, or you just have a nice position where it's really hard for them to hit you. You can be very effective at taking out enemy Titans, but it's very difficult to put yourself in a position where you are not in grave danger to be killed by the opposing Titan you're fighting. Now, for the Titan side of things, map awareness and positioning are key when you're playing a Titan. As a hulking mech, you can assert control over the battlefield pretty well, but you'll quickly find yourself losing if you try to 2v1 your opponent's Titans, or if you even get surrounded by pilots with anti-Titan weapons. It's all about teamwork and picking your fights. Or you can just kamikaze with your core ability before ejecting. Doom Titans and ejecting adds some great fleshed out depth to the Titan combat style by giving you a phase where you are critically wounded and open for melee execution, but still in control of your Titan and able to deal damage back to your enemies. If this emergency health bar runs out while you are in a Titan, or if an opponent Titan comes up to you and melees you, you'll be executed or simply die. However, during this phase you can also eject out of your Titan if you choose, launching you into the air where you are safe from your Titan's death, but also exposed to any sharpshooting pilot or Titan who can pick you out of midair. This is the reason why both nuclear eject and stealth eject are Titan options. Did I also mention that there's no falling damage? So I think the last things to really mention here are the end of game epilogue, being able to rodeo a Titan, and some other minor things that are not very important, but, you know, still part of the game. We'll start off with the biggest feature, or second biggest, depending on which way you want to look at it, but the ability to rodeo a Titan has been in the game since Titanfall 1, where you hopped onto an enemy Titan and shot its exposed core for pretty pathetic damage in my particular opinion, though it has been a while, and maybe I'm just misremembering. However, I did know it was especially irritating to not feel like I was dealing a lot of damage, and having to just immediately jump off when they popped the electric smoke. This mechanic has been tweaked in Titanfall 2 to be so much better. Electric smoke is now an earned armament by filling your core to roughly 30%, and whenever you rodeo a Titan now, you steal a battery from them, effectively cutting its health by about a third. You are still going to have to jump off that Titan if he electric smokes before you manage to take the battery, but once the smoke's gone, or once you have the battery, you can then bring it to a friendly Titan, and add it to their inventory, which heals them. However, it's not for a full third. It's a much smaller amount, otherwise it would be much less balanced. This is especially handy in a game mode like Last Titan Standing, where players with damaged Titans, or even no Titans at all, can attempt to collect one of two batteries that are on the map, or steal them from the opposing Titans to help their team after their Titan has been destroyed, or to heal their own Titan. If both teams, as I mentioned earlier, at the end of a round have the same number of Titans, it's going to be the team with the most health that wins the round, so that can make a big difference. The only other big thing to mention is going to be the end of game epilogue, a mini game at the end of every round you play, except maybe in the Titan versus Titan mode. The losing team will have a certain amount of time to get to the evacuation point, where a dropship will come in after a short amount of time and allow the losing team to board for evacuation, where they are both invincible and have a limited angle of fire to shoot at the enemy. The winning team's goal is to stop this evacuation in a mix of two ways. Once the epilogue starts, you have a very short time where dying will allow you to still respawn, but after that it's one life per person. Once you die here, the game is over for you, win or lose. So either team has the ability to kill the other team, and then the defending team can evacuate if the ship doesn't leave without them, which it absolutely will, or the winning team can destroy the dropship, killing everyone on board and giving bonus points for the player who dealt the finishing blow. Beyond that, you can also just kill every opponent before they get to the dropship, but because it's very easy to get to the dropship and automatically board it, it's much more difficult to do that. This is a really fun way to drive home a win or a loss, as the losing team either has to get the hell out of Dodge or kill everyone to then get the hell out of Dodge, or hope that your ship doesn't explode into a fireball before getting you out of safety. On the winning team side, it's a great way to really cement the victory as you destroy the enemy's retreat dropship. The last thing just barely worth mentioning are going to be the patches, banners, networks, and microtransactions. Patches and banners are just dog tags to give you a little more customizable feel for your pilot, and the microtransactions are almost a non-factor. I believe there's only one game mode, the Coliseum, that you can either earn tickets for or you can buy tickets for. Beyond that, if you didn't notice earlier, you can also buy in-game currency with real money, but the only thing this does for you is allow you to unlock items a little bit faster. Furthermore, you can even earn this in-game currency by just playing the game. For example, I have unlocked the Flatline, which is the final assault rifle, long before I actually got to that point because I had 100 in-game dollars to buy it for, and I thought that that was a cool looking gun because I really enjoyed it in the single player. Netwicks are a bit of a standout feature to me, but still a pretty small feature overall. But they are cool. They allow you to socialize and play with people that you have something in common with. It can take a while to understand if you don't really care about it, but I am a part of now the Achievement Hunter, Rooster Teeth, Funhouse, and Angry Army networks. These networks are populated with people that I know, at the very least, I have two things in common with. The network itself, and the fact that we are both playing Titanfall 2, so that's kind of a neat feature. So that's going to be the end of my multiplayer video for Titanfall 2. The game is incredibly well balanced and finely tuned, although I am biased as I haven't played an arcade style shooter for quite some time, but this one feels really solid, and I think I'm backed up by many larger review sites than myself, of course, giving it similar praise. My main disappointment here is that I really feel like this is the game that the original Titanfall should have been, and Respawn is kind of paying the price for that with those initial drop in sales, though at this point in time, I'm sure over the next years or so, the sales will even out as people realize that if I like Titanfall, I'll definitely like Titanfall 2, and it should, with any luck, last a little bit longer. Beyond that, I've already explained my comment about the grappling hook, so my other gripe is going to be about the unlock system, which I feel like is great, but, and you may think I'm overstating this, there are so many noises at the end of a game. There's just so many, like, ching, 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 click, 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 blop, 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 of all this stuff that you've accomplished or almost accomplished or are about to accomplish, so on and so forth. So it can get a little irritating, but, you know, nitpicky stuff. One important piece of information I did forget to add, Respawn has said that there will be no paid season pass for this game, and that all, although I can't quote all, DLC will be free. This, I think, is great news for us as players, as it means the player base, the number of players in the game, won't be split up as some of us have the DLC and some of us don't, as other games such as Battlefield have done. I think this works really well, similar to the way Rainbow Siege has done things, where you can purchase the characters sooner, so maybe we'll get Titans that we can purchase sooner, similar to the way it works, or we can just earn them by leveling up and unlocking them. So overall, not too much of a complaint. I do really like the way Respawn is approaching this, and I hope it works out for us. So taken with a grain of salt, I haven't played many arcade shooters in a while, but I was a big Call of Duty guy up until about Modern Warfare 2. I did play Black Ops 2, 3, Advanced Warfare, but for very little amounts of time compared to what I put into Modern Warfare 2 and the original Modern Warfare. So with that said, I think Titanfall 2 is definitely going to take the place of my favorite shooter within this arcade genre, and perhaps even shooters in general. I've never been amazing with my aim, although I've always felt like I was decent, but there were plenty of games where I just felt like I was getting crushed. I feel like Titanfall 2 has two types of players, and the best players are the ones that can meld both together. The mechanics of shooting and the maneuvering mechanics. I also feel like my maneuvering mechanics have given me an edge, so much so that I can play with a controller, which is generally viewed as much less effective than a mouse and keyboard, and I still feel like I'm doing really well. I'm hitting top of my team's leaderboards, and overall, it's a well-rounded experience. I haven't had this much fun since the Call of Duty series, and I can't wait to see if Titanfall 3 continues to improve and impress the same way. Well, thank you everyone. I hope you enjoyed this video and perhaps learned something about the game that you hadn't known before. I'll be playing this for a long time to come, and the more players, the merrier. Keep an eye out for my single-player discussion video, as well as my spoiler section for single-player. Like if you enjoyed the video. Comments on what you think I could do better would be great. This is the first really fully fledged review I think I did, outside of maybe my Division playthrough. But I would love to hear what you have to say, because I want to keep going and expand upon some more things. Till then, see you on the other side of my plasma gun. Peace out.